On today's podcast, we're diving headfirst into the absurd and surreal world of the Amazon television series I'm a Virgo. Created by Boots Riley and starring Jarrell Jerome, this supernatural comedy has certainly caught critics' attention. In our discussion, we'll be dissecting the pilot episode titled You a Big Motherfucker, where we meet Cootie, a towering 13-foot black teen who's been sheltered from the outside world until his curiosity and desire to become a hero get the better of him. Without further ado, it's June 26th. Welcome to today's episode. So when I first started doing research for I'm a Virgo, I thought to myself, well, what does this have to do with the zodiac symbols? And I found out really soon, absolutely nothing. In fact, that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to think, here's a 13-foot tall black teen. What exactly is going on with this horoscope?
When I first heard the name for this show, I thought it was going to be some type of Gossip Girl, like free-form TV show, some type of teen drama. Mm-hmm. And I was, right away,
it is a coming of age. It is a coming of age.
Yeah, but not in the same way that a lot of these coming of age shows have.
It's a supernatural, anti-capitalist, coming of age, absurdist comedy with, again, a 13-foot black man in Oakland.
Yeah, I know, and I think that it's a lot like, sorry to bother you, Boots Riley's other projects.
Yes.
I mean, I know that
So you recognized him immediately.
It wasn't surprising to see his name show up there.
And why is that?
He seems like an auteur in his craft. And I did look up if I'm a Virgo because it does seem like it was a comic book of some kind. That's what the show felt like. But when I looked it up on Google, I think this is like his own creation, right? Because
absolutely. He created it, he wrote it, he directed it. Very similar to Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that the only other thing he's done?
Okay,
really?
so do you know who Boots Riley is, like, besides his filmography? Well, he's a self-identified communist activist. Mm-hmm. That's kind of his claim to fame to start with, because he even went on to, I think, Bill Maher in the early 2000s, right after, like, 9/11, and made that statement. And then Bill Maher was like, well, how much do you get for your records? Because he's actually the frontman for The Coup, which was a hip-hop band in the 90s, and it still exists. I think he still does work with it. In fact, Sorry to Bother You was an album that he created, but Bill Maher went after him and he was like, how can you be a communist and still accept money for your records?
How long has Boots Riley been in the business for?
Oh, it depends on what you mean by the business. Like, again, his musical career has been for decades. His television and movie career has been more for like the last 15 years.
What else has he done?
Well, Sorry to Bother You is his real, like, big, like, it was his real break into the industry. And obviously, I actually have a game here for that movie because of how big it was. How did you like it?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
You like Sorry to Bother You?
I would give it like an 8 out of 10. It was very different. I remember it like the way the like twist that happens midway through, and then how it just escalates from there.
Yeah, we won't give away the ending right now in case anybody hasn't seen it. But Sorry to Bother You. There's 4 facts here. One of them is made up. Ready?
Okay.
See if you can figure it out. 3 endings were shot not to prevent leaks from going viral, but because Boots Riley had 3 different visions in mind.
That sounds 100%
well, again,
true.
this isn't a true and false. This is
I
basically...
know.
All right. Donald Glover was supposed to be the main character, but due to scheduling conflicts, he recommended his Atlanta co-star, Lakeith Stanfield.
Okay, that also sounds true.
He was inspired so much by this director, Michel Gondry, who's done Eternal Sunshine, Kitty in that show, The Green Hornet, Moon Indigo, but he's done like cartooning and stuff, and so he wanted to pay homage to this guy. But it ended up starting a beef because when he asked to use his name for it, he originally got like the guy said, okay, with conditions, and he met those conditions, but then the lawyer team got a hold of him and said, no, you can't use it. So he changed it from Michel Gondry to Mikel Dongry, and he made a point of telling Mikel Dongry that he was going to continue in everything that he did in the future to insult him. Because he was, I guess, so burnt over that. And then the last one is that it was filmed, Sorry to Bother You, was filmed concurrently in Oakland with Blindspotting.
I'm going to go with the last one. Filmed concurrently with Blindspotting is the fake one, right?
Is 100% true.
Wait, so Boots Riley
Because they both took place in Oakland. No, they were just filmed concurrently at the same time in Oakland,
okay.
Yes. He didn't work on it. Yeah.
So then, I mean, the third one, you had so much fact about it. I feel like that one has to be true. Yeah, it is true.
That one's true.
So then it's the Donald Glover one, right?
Nope, the Donald Glover. The first one was actually the false fact, which he didn't shoot 3 endings. It was
Oh.
literally just the way it was.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, no, I'm glad I tripped you up. So the magical realism element of Sorry to Bother You seems to play a big role in this. Because if you think about tall people, think about like even She-Hulk, right?
Yeah.
She was represented as like a huge person. They needed to get like some, I think a wrestler to play her, like as her stunt double or something, or the person that they used as her CGI. That person was 6'7". So compared to this, which is almost
So double the size.
Yeah. So you got 13 feet. How did it look?
I thought that there were some times where you could tell the shots that they were using how it was done because you had characters.
Oh, it's forced
from,
perspective.
Like, from like back and
it's
then
big
it's
fish
front.
forced perspective.
And then also there was a lot of like down or upward camera angles to make it seem like he was bigger than he actually was.
But did that take you out of it, or
no,
was that?
No, I mean like that. It seemed like you believed that this man was like 13 feet tall.
Okay.
And he was like 19 years old, as you were saying. He's tired of the restraint that his parents hold on him. This show throws you right into the action because right away we have people running around. You learn later on that the first scene they were at a hospital. We see Martise, who is really Cootie's uncle, but more like a father
Mike
figure.
Epps.
Yeah. Okay, so that was him.
Yeah, from
I
the
was trying to
Upshaws.
figure out. Yeah, I was trying to figure out because I was like, I knew I had seen him from someplace before.
And
But
he was also playing sort of a father-uncle character in the Upshaws. So here he's playing. Is he also playing the uncle here?
Yeah.
So
no,
he's playing the uncle in both shows?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But he's completely different. If I remember in the Upshaws, he's kind of supposed to be like the fun-loving uncle. Well, the slacker, but I'm talking about like with how his kids see him, the fun-loving uncle.
And this one is supposed to be like a good guy.
He is supposed to be a hard ass in this one.
So he's like Red Foreman.
Yeah.
From that 70s show.
Well, yeah, because La Francine, this is the first shot of the show, she's holding this ginormous baby.
Yeah.
And they're looking at something, and you're not really supposed to know what it is. And we see Martise leave La Francine's side, and so I was like...
Was he upset with her, or was he just like...
There was just so much mystery because he's not even looking at her at the time. He's looking at whatever is off screen.
Yeah.
And then they leave.
Do they explain how the baby was born?
Well, this is what I think happened because I think what it was doing was the first scene is supposed to be the mom, and because the mom was so big, because the baby is crying but also bloody because of how big it was. Yeah, the mom ended up dying, and I think that's why Martise, who is the mom's brother,
has a grudge against
Cootie, but I think more specifically in that first scene, that's why he leaves the side because everyone is in a state of shock.
No,
that's
I get
why
it.
Nurses are running around and everything. So,
Sure.
So, but we're not supposed to know that yet. That's just the first scene of the show. They decide to bring the baby home, and then there's a quick montage where they're just trying to teach the baby kind of everything. They're not laying him outside at all. But like we see him dancing around and kind of getting older.
But even then, you can kind of figure out, right, that this is going to be an outcast, and that's what they're trying to stop is from that baby from like almost like the Benjamin Button universe or Jack, that Robin Williams film where like the guy ages at an extremely fast rate, or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, where there's something wrong with this reindeer, but like it's going to end up being an advantage later on, but at first maybe kids would bully him. I don't know how you would bully someone so big.
I think that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is probably more more correct than the other ones, just because like Martise is literally having to paint the house yellow, and wherever it's yellow is where Cootie, because of how big he's growing, can like actually stand and stay. But he's breaking walls throughout the first like 10 minutes of this thing just because of how big he is.
No, I understand that. So before we jump to him being 19 feet tall, do they explain how he gets his clothes?
How he gets his clothes?
Because, like, once you're 13 feet tall, not 19 feet tall. He's 19 years old.
He's 19 years old.
But, like, once he gets to 13 feet, those have to be custom made, right? Like, and how do they afford that? Are they rich or like...
You would probably think so. No, I wouldn't say... Well, it's kind of up for debate because I would say that they aren't rich, but there is a point where, like, 10 minutes in, when Cootie is 19 years old and he's just literally breaking everything in the house, they decide to build a whole new house for him. In fact, that shot where they're building the house, La Francine Francine and Martise was the most Sorry to Bother You that it got. It reminded me a lot of in Sorry to Bother You when you see Lakeith Stanfield's kind of rise.
Mm-hmm.
You see lamps break and a bigger lamp come out of it.
Yeah, you remember the movie better than I do.
In this scene, you saw the house, they're doing the groundwork, but in the background, the house is being made.
Yes.
Like, so it kind of was like a similar
Artistic.
type of artistic thing. That's what I mean by him being an auteur. The way this thing is shot and the way that they were able to do things, I thought, was really well done.
Okay, so he ages up to being 19 years old, living in this house. That's got to feel secluded and also very. If you're so tall, you have to feel very suffocated.
The house they were making,
Yes.
That's just his house. Like, they literally have two different houses. This house that they made for him is just, so you can imagine how
and he
tall
doesn't
this
have
thing has to be.
gigantism. They don't try to explain away his thing because technically then he could be a basketball player, right?
That's debatable because midway through the episode they say that once in a generation a giant is always made. That's the difference from this world to
Hagrid.
ours. Yeah, and that's why they want to keep him kind of inside this house and don't want to let him out. They say once he turns 21 he can kind of do whatever he wants, but they want to keep him inside because they've learned, and they even have newspaper clippings throughout the years, that whenever people know that there's a giant, like whether it's in New York or Iowa, they always end up dying because people for some reason don't really understand
It's
them.
kind of like a circus thing. People stop and stare and someone attacks. Or I don't know, but yeah, go ahead. So does he meet other giants? Yes.
No, he's the only giant that we see in the episode, but that was the interesting part, is that actually there's a ton of different people, I assume, in this show that have powers, because a big part of this episode is him wanting to get these things called Big Bang Burners.
Okay.
Like
Big Bang Burners.
No, Big Bang Sorry. Bing Bang Burgers.
Bing Bang food.
Yes, like he really, really wants to have these things.
And his parents.
And Martise is just completely against it. He literally calls it poison, saying how he's never had them before and he doesn't want Cootie to have them. And he's also saying that La Francine has never had them. He does not want Cootie to get these burgers.
This is supposed to be, like I said, anti-capitalist, so maybe this is like anti-McDonald's?
Well, that's an interesting way to look at it, because in the next scene, right after he has this argument with his parents about why he can't have these burgers, like it's the daytime, and there's someone who is living in kind of one of those really high-rise houses, so he's able to actually see Cootie and see how tall he is.
Sure.
He goes over and starts talking to Cootie and is like, yeah, your father and I used to have these Bing Bang burgers all the time, like we would rip it up, and so that kind of leads Cootie to really just want to get out of this area. He's 19, he doesn't want to wait until he's 21, and this is where the show, I thought, kind of had some tonal inconsistencies, because there's a lot of swearing in the show, which is fine, but also at times it felt like it was trying to be like a family show.
The title of the show is based off the Pulp Fiction Samuel L. Jackson line, right?
But
you a big motherfucker?
But there's times even when, like, he dresses up as a giant tree and starts walking out.
No.
And it seemed like it was supposed to kind of be almost child-friendly, but then he meets 4 different people, one of them played by my favorite character on My Block.
You're talking about Brett Gray? He plays Felix in the show?
Yeah, he is so much older now.
No.
Like, I don't feel
Jamal was a really cool character on My Block, the first few seasons. The last season of On My Block, I remember we watched the first episode of that, and it just was awful. I don't know if the season got better, but they changed the characters so much.
The thing is that I think he was like in his early 20s when he was doing the first few seasons of On My Block.
Yeah.
Now I think he's playing a teenager here, but he still seems so much older. Like, it's obvious. I don't think he can really ever go back to playing those type of characters again.
Okay.
But yeah, they're like smoking weed and everything. But like I said, majority of this episode is him trying to get Bing Bang Burgers.
Bang Burgers.
So it's just like it was so odd trying to figure out who this show was kind of trying to be for. Was it trying to be a family show, or was it trying to like scope in everything, bring in like a bigger audience?
So Cootie escapes his house. He goes to get the burgers, but he runs into this group of other kids. Is that what you're saying?
I think that like at the very beginning, this is like 20 minutes in or so, he was just wanting to leave to see kind of what the world was like.
Yeah.
In that way, it was a little bit like Room, the Brie Larson film.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
that's a drastic comparison, given that, like, yeah.
Obviously, the situations are different, but here it's
no,
like...
I mean, like, one is a thing about a 5-year-old who's been kidnapped and his mom who's been raped in
But
a
it's
house.
supposed
like,
to be that way. Like, Cootie is supposed to be seeing the world for the first time. That's how we're supposed to feel. He literally is just allowed to stay in his house.
Yes, I understand that, yeah.
So, and it turns out that the kids, the four of them, Felix, Scat, and Jones, including Cootie, I should say. That's what I mean by four.
Yeah.
They end up figuring out...
The person who plays Alias Barnes has been in, like, a ton of stuff, but just not as a main character. Cruel Summer, Unbelievable, Snowfall, Pen 15, and then who'd you say the other one was? Because
Jones.
there's Felix, and then Jones, mostly theater stuff, Kara Young,
Okay.
yes. But yeah, go ahead.
They figure out where Cootie is living, and then one night they just decide to all go out.
Mm-hmm.
So they're literally doing things that are just crazy. They're doing donuts in the parking lot.
Okay,
like,
how does Cootie fit in the car?
Well, he's actually sitting on the back trunk. Like, he is so obviously exposed. This is against Martise and LaFrancine's wishes entirely.
Sure, but he's just having fun.
And one plot point I haven't mentioned yet is Walton Goggins makes an appearance.
Well, you did mention superheroes and powers, but you didn't mention him, no. And he plays Jay Whittle, called the Hero?
The Hero. So Jay Whittle, I guess, was making these comic books that Cootie was given kind of in the first few scenes.
And that reminded me of American Born Chinese, because this guy was a little obsessed with superheroes, and that guy was a little obsessed with anime.
This guy is also crazy. There's a scene very early on where Cootie, when he's like very young, and his parents or his parental figures, they're watching this TV screen, and Jay Whittle, is that his name again?
Yes, Jay Whittle.
Yeah, he's having this interview, and randomly out of nowhere, he talks about law and order and how people should not feel like they have a gun pressed against their head, and he pulls out an actual gun.
Oh, Joker
and he starts pressing it. I thought that the shot was going to go off. I thought the show was going to go in a really dark place, but no, he ends up playing it down. But you could see that this guy is not mentally stable.
I thought that, from what I was reading at least, that Cootie took that interview and kind of embraced it, that he really liked it.
Yes, I mean, that's kind of the last shot we see. Yes, that's almost exactly like it, and he really likes attention, especially positive attention.
Does he meet Walton Goggins' character?
Not in the first episode, but when they're doing donuts in the parking lot, Cootie is able to lift the car up and tilt, so as the car is doing these donuts, it's at an angle, and people are really starting to enjoy him. It's so big that it goes viral on social media, and that's when Martise and LaFrancine kind of have the talk with him inside his house.
So they find out.
Yes, and that's when they tell him about the Giants and how it's once in a generation, and people aren't going to enjoy him if they're going to try and kill him, and that they're the only people that he can trust. So in that way, whenever I was able to see Cootie kind of have these like scenes with his parental figures, or the scenes where he was able to use his powers, there's like a ton of scenes where he's just using these cars as like weights for the gym.
Yeah, but have you met Flora yet?
Flora shows up at the very end. So he goes to finally get these Bang Bang burgers.
Sure. So that's the fast food place.
He doesn't care anymore. He just wants to have them.
It's like this White Castle.
And that's how we know that there's so many different superpowers in this show, because Flora, at superhuman speed, literally so fast you can't see her arms like putting these burgers in containers and everything.
She's not really a superhero. This is kind of just in his head.
Maybe. I thought it was supposed to be that she is actually
Remains
that
to be
fast.
seen. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she gives him these burgers, and I think that's really the only scene we get with him, because he eats the burgers and he ends up anti-McDonald's. He doesn't like them. Like this whole entire thing, he's been trying to do this whole episode, and he eats them, and like everyone in the car is like, "These are good, Cootie, right?" And he's like, "No, these are absolutely terrible."
It's like that peer pressure element, and then when you finally like reach it, and then you're just like, wait, and you can admit to yourself that it's not worth it. It's interesting because I thought that there was going to be a sex scene in the first, and we normally wouldn't talk about future episodes, but there's been so much made about this sex scene between Flora and Cootie, and it's been compared to The Idol in a positive way.
In a positive way? Is there anything positive about The Idol?
They're basically saying, Sam Levinson, take note. This is how you do a real sex scene, and like experimental, but also like weird, like cool stuff. And I don't know, but that's actually Denzel's daughter.
That's Denzel's daughter. Okay.
Yeah. Olivia Washington, Denzel Washington's
Yeah,
daughter.
because Flora is kind of flirting with Cootie because what happened was before Cootie was really known to the public, Felix made a video talking about how he's releasing merch because he was the first one to kind of figure out who Cootie was because Cootie again was dressed in a tree, and while Felix was about to take a piss on him, the tree kept on moving backwards.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
So that's so people are like buying shirts, and that's how they're kind of supporting him. By the very end of the episode, he goes to a dance club. He doesn't know how to like pick up any woman at all. He ends up like not even being able. He really embarrasses himself.
He's already tough because of how tall he is.
Yeah.
But, like, how would you even go about dancing without hurting people?
He's not dancing at all. He's just sitting next to the speakers. One thing we know about him is he really loves vibrations. When the car is driving, he's like putting his head up against the trunk. When the big speakers are going off in this dance club, he's putting his head against it. I wasn't sure what they were really trying to do there. Maybe it was foreshadowing for something we haven't seen yet.
Okay.
But by the end of the episode, we learned that this Jay Whittle character actually is a hero. We see someone flying up midway through the episode. That must have been him because I think he was playing some type of cop character as well.
Yeah.
And then it's probably the stupidest twist. I really hated this. Was we learned that the parents are actually evil. At least it seemed like that's what they were doing because they like open up this secret chamber and there's huge guns that they have and they're talking about how the time is now or whatever because Cootie is being shown on like TV and everything.
So you took that to mean that they're going to try to kill Cootie?
That's what I thought that the show was making it seem like. Either kill Cootie or just that they were evil and like they're unlatching some plan.
From everything that you said though, it sounded like they were trying to prepare Cootie for the worst in case people found out. So maybe they're just trying to get ready in case people go after Cootie.
There's so many times in the episode that Martise and LaFrancine are talking to him and saying, we're the only people you can trust. Like, you can't trust anybody else.
You think that this is going to be sort of like an Invincible situation?
Yes, and Invincible is one of the things I compared it to. Also, I feel like whenever you talk about Invincible, you have to talk about The Boys. On my block,
well, The Boys have, like, the Kira's being evil. So
yes.
Is there a chance that Walton Goggins is evil?
I don't know because, again, he's supposed to be a cop, and we already saw how mentally unstable he is, but we haven't seen, I feel like, enough of him to get a good judgment on it.
He might be an anti-hero or, like, one of those kind of in-betweeners.
The scene with him with the gun in the interview was almost so surreal, it reminded me of sometimes Mr. Robot, where it just randomly goes into a ton of bizarre
we go into Elliot's
thoughts.
head too much.
Yeah, and then also, sorry to bother you, the weird quirk that this show has.
The quirkiness that it has. The only other shows that, like, some people have compared it to Mrs. Davis and Atlanta, Black Mirror, and Lovecraft Country.
All those, yeah, because, again, it's dealing with race, but I don't feel like, and race is the central issue in this show, but it's not doing it in a ham-fisted, direct way. It's trying to kind of be subtle about it.
Some of those dealt with race. Some of them are just, like, weird in general, like their tone, and it's very absurd, but it's also, like, magical realism, as I pointed out before. Did you get anything that reminded you of Beef, though? Because to me, for some reason... Okay, so the reason I bring that up is, again, Stephen Yeun connection there, but also because, like, what happens in Beef feels somewhat realistic, but also, like, completely impossible, right?
At the same time,
Yeah, so in a way, this kind of fits that mold, right? Like,
I saw this more
too much superhero stuff?
I saw this more as a superhero show, and that's actually my biggest pro for the show. The world building, the amount of time they spend on it, it seemed like they're building it to be something...
That they're going to set up a franchise.
Yeah, is it supposed to be 8 episodes?
Somewhere close to that, yes.
Okay, yeah, so I think
it's even, like, 7, possibly, yeah.
So I think that this has the potential to be something great. However, I just don't think that's there yet. And if they are really going to stick with this thing, if my prediction was right about the parents being evil, because that's what it made it seem like, then I feel like this show is just going to be too ridiculous at some point.
All right, any more pros and cons before I get into the other reviews?
I'm just going to give my score 6 out of 10. I feel like it was somewhat long, the story is a little messy, but there's still enough humor, heart, and good performances to make it a passing grade.
Okay. Well, the other reason I wanted to compare it to actually, do you recognize where the main character is from? Because I don't know if you've ever seen him before.
No.
But you think he did a good job? Yes, no. Okay, so his main claim to fame is Moonlight, and then he was also in When They See Us, a few years later. He was also one of the voices in Spider-Man Into the
When
Spider-Verse.
They See Us. So, yeah, Brett Gray, because Brett Gray was in that show as well.
Absolutely. Yes, he was. He was also in Mr. Mercedes. Jarrell Jerome, it seems like he can pick whatever project he wants now. He's only 25 years old, but he even said in an interview that, like, 5 years ago he would have done anything, but now he can be picky.
So he really has broken into the mainstream then.
Yes, in fact, he was, like, the one chosen for the role. I think Boots Riley sent him an email and was like, 13-foot black man in Oakland. And that's how he, like, put that as the subject to get him interested. And that's how he signed on. The other person that was responsible for the creation of the show, besides Boots Riley, was the CEO of Media Res Production. I don't even have his name here. But this is, like, the first project that Media Res has done with Amazon. Up until now, it's mostly been Apple, but they've also done Scenes from a Marriage with HBO, The Morning Show, Extrapolations, Pachinko. So they've done big, good shows before. And it's just interesting that, and Boots Riley made this point in several interviews, and so did, like, some of the reviewers, the critics. They pointed out how he is on he's making fun of billionaires on a billionaires platform.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's get into the other reviews. It has a 6.4 on IMDb, but that's where the bad stuff stops, because it's got universal acclaim everywhere else.
Wait, it has a 6.4, which is definitely not a great score, but you're saying it has universal acclaim?
Remember when I compared it to Beef? You can also compare it to Beef for this reason, because 86 on Metacritic, which translates to almost everywhere that comes out with a written review, has it glowing. Rolling Stone says they love the story, the acting. Guardian gave it 5 stars. It's called a different, clever. New York Times said it was not subtle, but art. AV Club said it was audaciously strange. The concept was right on the nose. Entertainment Weekly gave it an A-. Wall Street Journal, CNN, IGN, all positive. IGN gave it a 9 out of 10. Roger Ebert, 3.5 out of 5. The Daily Beast called it messy in a good way. IndieWire gave it a B+. If you're getting what I'm saying, every place reviewed this thing. Decider said stream it. Time and Variety both made that point about the billionaires that I just said. Hollywood Reporter said that it had heart. And finally, The Telegraph is the only one who had sort of a meh review, and it was still like a 60 out of 100 according to Metacritic. Now, it's interesting too, because those ratings are very similar to Sorry to Bother You, which, again, this show has a 6.4, but Sorry to Bother You on IMDb has a 6.9. Both have a 93 on Rotten Tomatoes critic score. On their audience score, their perspective 79% compared to 70%, and their Metacritic score are 86 compared to 80. So they're almost exactly the same. And it's just funny because it has to do with how Boots Riley presents his movies and direction, and
I felt like there was problems with the show that I'm surprised people
looked
so
over.
Much. Yeah, because like Cootie, for example, his character thoughts are sometimes they're so constant and lazily written because they're just said by him. And I understand that he's not very...
it's on the nose, like some of these things pointed out.
But yeah, I feel like at some point it can be too on the nose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, no, absolutely. And you still passed it with a 6 out of 10. But are you going to watch any more of it?
I mean, with the
rest of the reviews
the way they are, I might have to.
And I did find it kind of funny because Boots Riley is actually an Aries. So he's not even a Virgo. So I don't know why I think Virgo, if I looked at the zodiac thing correctly, it means like adventurous or something. Well, there
has to be. I think Virgo has some
I honestly don't think there is a reason other than just to kind of play with your idea of what the show should be about.
Also, I'm an Aries. What doesn't sound as good as like I'm a Virgo.
Yeah, but he definitely instilled elements of himself into both this character and also Walton Goggins' character.
I'm not surprised. It also seemed like at points with Cootie's kind of obsession with comic books, it reminded me a lot of Unbreakable, Samuel L. Jackson's character in that, because of how much he liked comic books as well. It seems like nowadays, whenever we get any type of thing, any type of superhero show, they always have to introduce comic books. Like Logan even had the X-Men comic books in their movie.
And drifting away from the superhero element of it, Woke, that series, I remember they had a bunch of really surreal stuff happening.
That was way more surreal, though, because like...
More surreal, because it was based off a cartoonist life, but it was also race-related, but I'm just
trash cans, and if I remember correctly, just inanimate
So if a trash
objects.
Can started talking, or an inanimate object started talking in this show, it wouldn't fit?
I don't think so, because at least with Woke, they had eyes and they had mouths, and that felt like it was the whole point of Woke. Here, it seems like it actually has a story to it, and I just feel like if they were to include that, it would
Woke had a story. It was just that you're saying that this is like, it's supposed to be unrealistic because of the superhero powers and also his height, but other than that, everything else should be consistent.
Yeah.
And the speed of which she can put food into a plastic bag.
I'm sure that Flora, that must be
She
her
has a
power.
power?
She has like a flash thing, because it would be such an, because especially the way we see it, I did not get that it was Cootie's perspective.
It just
that I
feels
saw
like
it.
they must be paying her more than a regular fast food wage, though.
Well, that was what was making me think maybe these superheroes are kind of common in the same way that they are in The Boys, where it's like people aren't going to be as surprised to see them in real
Also,
life.
she can bag it as fast as she wants, but like that burger's still going to take just as long to cook. I'm just pointing that out. All right, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.